This is the plaintiff, Gary. He says he paid the defendant to install a new skylight in his roof, and the crook took his money and ran off with it. This guy can't be allowed to get away with an out-and-out theft, and he needs to pay him back. He now needs roof work to keep the squirrels out because the defendant left a gaping hole in his house. He's suing for $1,895, the amount he's owed. This is the defendant. He says the skylight company went out of business and took the plaintiff's money with them. As far as leaving a hole in a house so squirrels can get in, preposterous. He seals everything up tight as a button and says this guy has no case and no shot of winning today in this court. He's accused of going poof in the night.
All parties, please raise your right hands.
Welcome back to the People's Court. Next case on the docket. The plaintiff says the defendant is a crook who took his money when he was supposed to install a skylight. But the defendant says that he purchased the skylight from a window company that went out of business, and they took the plaintiff's money with them. It's the case of Poof into the night.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome.
All right, Mr. Gary, you're suing Mr. Danino for $1,895 that you say you are out $900 of it, a deposit for a skylight he never installed, and the rest of it for exterminator fees because, according to you, he left it open. Talk to me. Tell me what happened.
Yeah, in late April, I hired Mr. Danino to repair my roof because I had roof leaks. He said he repaired the roof. On May 4th, I reached out to him. I said, the roof is still leaking. On May 12th, I reached out to him again, said the roof is still leaking. He finally came back on May 13th. He said that the roof looks good, the repairs look good, but I need a new skylight. He then asked me for a deposit of $900 for the skylight, which I gave him. I wrote him a check.
Was the check written to him or to a different company?
To him.
To him, okay.
Yes. I provided the copy of the check to you guys.
Okay.
Then I didn't hear from him. I made multiple calls. And then on July 20th, I texted him. I said, are you planning on installing the skylight? He said that he ordered the skylight, but the skylight came damaged. So he has to reorder the skylight and said he'd be back in 2 weeks to reinstall the skylight. Time went on. I made calls. I texted him. No response. In the meantime, I was getting squirrels in the ceiling of the office. It's an office, a one-floor office building. And my brother hired a exterminator who put in traps throughout the office. Couldn't catch the squirrels. Finally, in January, I hired another exterminating company who came and said that there are 2 large holes in the roof. And he put in a door that allowed the squirrels to go out but not come back in.
Right,
so
that's a little more humane. Out. Did he take pictures of the holes in the roof?
No, he didn't. He didn't. But he sealed up the holes. And since he sealed up the holes, I've had no leaks. I never replaced the skylight, and I have had no other leaks, since then.
Do you have that person here to testify where the holes were?
No, but I had the exterminating company write something up to explain exactly what they found in the roof.
Okay.
And I provided that to the court.
Squirrel entrance holes at top roof level. This is in January of 2022.
Correct.
Sealed one hole with a wire mesh and applied a one-way squirrel door to the other hole. How are you linking that to Mr. Danino's work, though, or fault? In other words, you're asking for him to pay the exterminator fee of $995 because, according to you, he left holes up there. But the holes are discovered in January, and the last time he was there was the prior May.
No, originally the squirrels, about 2 weeks after he repaired the roof, I started hearing the pitter-patter of animals in the ceiling.
Okay, you have no pictures of the holes. The best thing you have is this letter, and this letter says, I found holes in January. Do you have anybody finding holes in May, the prior May?
No, I just had the squirrels.
Right, but so according to you, you lived with the squirrels for 7 months.
Plaintiff says he now has a big squirrel problem in his house because the defendant left him high and dry on a skylight installation. And the defendant says he didn't leave any holes in the guy's house, and this squirrel story is preposterous. Let's listen.
There was COVID, so the office was closed for a number of months.
There was COVID a year before the squirrels. A year and 2 months before the squirrels is when COVID hit. You're telling me you had squirrel problems in May of 2021. I realize there's still COVID, but there's still squirrels. And there's still exterminators, and they're still working. COVID isn't an excuse for everything. Now, let me hear from you, Mr. Danino. Did you leave any holes in the man's roof?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Do you take pictures after you finish a job?
I do.
Do you have pictures of his roof?
I'm going to check. It was a while ago.
Yeah, I know you're being sued on national television. I thought you might have checked before now, but go ahead and check.
Okay, give me 1 second, please. Sorry, 1 second. Here it comes. I do not.
Okay.
I have no.
All right, so let's move on to the skylight issue. According to him, he paid you a deposit for the skylight. What happened with that?
Okay, so he gave me a $900 deposit for the skylight. I ordered the skylight. I gave them a $500 deposit, and when the skylight came in, I was going to pay them the balance of $400. Skylight came in. I inspected it. It had a crack in the glass. He was going to order me a new one. Time went on. I was called to Gary's place to remove some birds. There were dead birds under his awning. I removed some dead birds. I put some metal flashing so the birds can't get in anymore. I cleaned up the mess. Did go back on the roof, cleaned out the gutters. Still waiting for the skylight to come in. I felt Gary owed me a couple of dollars, so I assumed that I was able to take the $400 off the top, and that was my money.
How do you figure?
Well, I did some work for Gary.
Well,
and,
did he? But I don't understand. That $900 was for a skylight. So did he ever agree to whatever other work you did? Did he agree for you to use that $400 that you weren't out? Oh, okay. So that you took that upon yourself to say, all right. So, but what happened with the skylight is what I'm asking.
Welcome back to the People's Court. The plaintiff says he now needs roof repairs because the defendant was so negligent that he wants $2,000 for his troubles. But the defendant says that he sealed everything up tight as a button on the plaintiff's roof and owes him zip. Let's go back into the courtroom and find out what the judge thinks.
So the skylight came in. I never went and picked up the skylight. When I did go back by the place, because I kept calling them, they were out of business. So I was out the $500 that I left for a deposit. And honestly, I was kind of embarrassed to even go to Gary and tell him what had happened to me.
So what you did was ignore him?
Yes, I did.
Because that should be infinitely more embarrassing for you.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
So basically, you took his $900 for a deposit on a skylight. The company goes bankrupt. You're only out $5, not $9, but you don't even return the $4 because you think you deserve it, and you return nothing, and he has to sue you for that. How do you figure? The company goes bankrupt. It's the company that you picked. You gave him a quote that included materials. You picked the company. He writes the check to you. How do you figure that that becomes a Gary problem as opposed to a Mr. Danino problem? That's a Mr. Danino problem, not a Gary problem. I'm ordering you to return the $900 that he gave you, plus prejudgment statutory interest since the time he gave it to you. As far as the exterminator issue is concerned, you know, I've had families of animals living in my roof in a home I own in North Carolina. It is very depressing. The little pitter-patter of feet is not a happy sound. I know what, you know, I've even had flying squirrels in there at one point, and raccoons at another point. I know it's maddening, and I know that it can happen through many different methods. You have absolutely no evidence to tie it into holes he left up there. You don't. So I'm not going to order him to pay for your exterminator, but you absolutely get your money back on the skylight. That's my verdict. Good luck, folks.
So the plaintiff unquestionably prevails in this lawsuit. The defendant had no defense. Mr. Danino, what do you think about what the judge just had to say to you?
I got to rethink things when I do things. That's all I got to say.
This did not look too good for you at all. Yeah, I think you do have to rethink things a lot. What a shame. Gary, it's a shame you had to file a lawsuit. What do you think about what the judge just ruled here?
Well, I think the squirrel problem was the defendant's fault, because once those holes were sealed up, the roof leak was fixed. So obviously that was the cause of the original leak problem. But I'm happy at least I got my $900 back, and I hope other people in my neighborhood see this case so they know not to deal with him.
Yeah, the question, you still haven't had the skylight replaced. Are you going to replace it or not?
I don't need to, because once those holes were sealed, I didn't have any more leaks, so I don't need a skylight.
Oh, so you don't even need it at all. All right. Well, good for you. Okay, congratulations. You have prevailed. Good move that you sued him. Harvey?
Doug, believe it or not, this is not an uncommon problem. And a lot of this is dealt with by the contract. And that's why it's really important to read these contracts that you have. That sometimes contractors will say, we are not responsible if the manufacturer goes out of business. And it's something you should think about, at least check into who the manufacturer is.
Marilyn, what's your favorite website online, or the one that you visit the most often, other than maybe a search engine?
Well, it's kind of sad. It's iCloud.com so that I can see my to-do lists.
Why am I not surprised? Your to-do lists have to-do lists, right?
I have a to-do list under the reminders section of my iCloud account.
Right.
I have like 20 to-do lists. I have a to-do list for you on my account.
I'm struggling
a
really
to-do list
hard
for
here.
each of the girls. A to-do list for...
I'm struggling mightily not to call you a nerd.
Yeah,
but
I know.
You are a slave.
And other than that, probably Amazon.
Right.
Yeah.
And I write down my to-do lists on pieces of paper.
And then you lose them.
And they get lost. They're all around the house.
Yeah, I'm like, you can't do that. And it works for me. I'm like, at least take a picture. Then now you started to take a picture of the list that you lose, so now you have that at least on your phone.
Well, the website that I'm on the most is probably Pinside, because I like pinball, and I'm constantly looking and trying to learn more. Yes, I do.
Yeah. Oh.
So I'm always looking to find out more, and people share information on there about how to fix games, how to maintain games, what games are worth, what you might want to trade for.
What games are in the area. Anytime you go to a new city, you're not looking up the best restaurant. You're looking up where you can play pinball.
Yeah, and they also tell you that, which is great. They have a map for that. So I totally recommend it, okay, for everybody who likes pinball.